Greetings. Welcome to today's session. This is Jyoti Dodia, and I'm really pleased to have Tim Rowe with us to deliver the 101st session in the Power Technical webinar series. And today's session is going to be IBM Systems Management for People of Today. So very pleased to hand over to Tim.
Thank you so very much, Jyoti, for having me back again. Always a pleasure to join this group. We're going to spend some time today talking about a wide range of systems management tools, and of course, not just talking about them. As many of you who know me, I'm a huge fan of Death by Demo, so we're going to dive in and we're going to actually play with some of these tools and actually show you some hands-on usages of things. As we go through this and cover these different options and tools that are available for today, don't hesitate. Put something in the chat, ask questions. Jyoti will be monitoring that and will interrupt me so that we can try to get your questions answered as quickly as possible. And even though I know this is a recorded session, if we can make it interactive, that is fantastic. It's so good to be able to be on a session where we have truly a worldwide audience and be able to have a interaction. It certainly makes it a lot more fun. So, wow, systems management. There are so many different options available today. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about ACS. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about Navigator. We'll look at the Digital Certificate Manager, as well as some IBM services, the administration runtime expert, and lastly, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about a tool that I get really excited about, something called Nagios, which is an open source tool that we've built some support around to help you look and monitor your entire data center, including your IBM. So to get started, let's dive right in. I know we have an hour and a half for this, but I'm guessing I'm going to be running out of time because there's so many fun things that we can go play with here. So when we talk about managing and accessing the system, there are a couple different groups that really I have to pay attention to. First off, I have everyday users, right? And you do too, right? In your shops, who are your everyday users that have to access the machine? We need to make sure that they have the interfaces and tools that they need. We have a group of people that are responsible for managing the IBM. And so I want to understand, what are those people? What are their needs? What are the tools that they require? Our platform is a database machine, right? So what are the tools that are needed to be able to help the database engineer make certain the database is working at its peak on IBM? And then the last group that I think is important is many of us, we have a data center, and within the data center, we may have an IBM, but we may have other things. And so, is there ways that I can take and look at that holistic view of my data center and do the ability to monitor things? So those are some of the different areas that we're going to look at today. And really, this session here is a nice follow-on to the last one where Wang Yun talked about how to automate some of those things when it comes to managing using a tool like Ansible. So again, this systems management focused thing is all sorts of great fun. So first off, when we talk about the strategy that we need to deal with, I need to make sure that we have tools that work virtually anywhere. At one time, years ago, we only had our access for Windows support, which is a Windows only thing. Today, I want to make certain that we have interfaces that are accessible from wherever it is that you need to be able to access that from, whether it's Windows, Mac, Linux, mobile devices. And that's a significant change in our landscape that we need to be able to deal with. And to do that, we've had to make some hard decisions, one of them being our access for Windows support. We put at end of life, and that was done April of last year. And that was incredibly important because it really allowed us to take and focus on doing new things in new and different ways and not have to spend our time chasing the Windows update methodology. So some of our core solutions, Navigator, Access for Mobile, ACS, and the ARE support, those are some of our strategic interfaces from an IBM-I-centric perspective, and we're going to spend some time diving into several of these. So first off, ACS. The current version of ACS that's out today, we delivered in, I believe, June of this year, is our 1185 version. Lots of updates were added into this, all sorts of new features and functions, including the ability to access it either through our download site, which is listed here on the web page, or also being able to access it via a set of PTFs. And this is really interesting. Our HTTP PTF group contains, and these are the group numbers, contains PTFs that deliver the 1185 version of ACS. And we put that in this directory in IFS. So if I were to go sign on to a machine, I'd be able to see whether or not the PTF for ACS is applied or not based on whether this directory has something in it. Now, the fun thing is I can now use that directory as my location for downloading ACS to my PC. So really simplifying how you access and keep ACS current on your PC. And the one thing that I would encourage, I know many people have this mentality, well, if it's working, don't update because I don't want it to break. Well, with ACS, this is one of those products where it's really important that you stay current because we've been adding so many new features and functions, responding to requests that you, our customers, give us so that we can continue to make your experiences with managing the system better and better. And I'm going to show you a couple examples as we kind of dive in and play with this support. Now, when we talk about download reimagined, this is quite fun. In your ACS config.properties file, there's a new property that you can add. It's called check system update, where you can specify a specific system, an IBM-I, that you want to check to see if there's a newer version on it. Now, when you go to help check for updates, we will sign on to that system and we will check to see if there's a newer version or not that's available for you. That's quite fun. So just for the sake of early stepping into demos, I'm going to jump over here to ACS, and we'll just get started right here back from the beginning. And if I go to help check for updates, I'm going to validate and see, yeah, look, I have a newer update on this machine than what I'm currently running. If I click the on install, it's going to download it from that IBM-I and it's going to install it onto my Mac. That's what I'm currently running on. Now, you may have noticed something. I'm going to point it out right here. Look at this guy. We have a new icon, a new image for ACS. As you might have guessed, since I'm in the development lab, I'm running on the next version. I'm not running on 1185. I'm running on what's going to become 1186, which is due to be delivered in the 1st of December. So in just a couple short weeks. And why is this image important? Because this is to help you understand that, one, ACS is now a officially assigned product. So IBM has gone through and we've signed it with an IBM certificate. All the stuff is correctly assigned. It's now a Mac configurable application, so it works great on Mac as well. So that's one of the many interesting changes that we've delivered in 1186. Additionally, in 1186, you can now see and update that check for system updates yourself. It's now available in the Edit Preferences page, where you can go out and specify that. Now, that doesn't help you for the 1186 update, but it will help you for future updates, where you can go specify your system. And when you do that check for updates, that's the system that we'll go look at to see if there's a newer version out there ready and available for you. Now, a couple of the other features that we're delivering in this 1186, and there's a bunch of stuff. I've got the slides in here, but slides are no fun. Let's go play for a minute. If you've ever had to go work with the IFS, the Integrated File System, if you've used this particular support in the past in older versions, you may have been a bit frustrated with the performance of this interface. Well, the good news is in 1185, we radically changed how this works under the covers. And I like to say this support today is freaky fast. So, you know, if I go click on something, you get basic instantaneous updates to these IFS directories. You know, so I can go up, I can click on something, go back down. By the way, this is the directory that now has our ACS bundle in it, right? So you can see the PTFs are loaded on this machine, and I've got a version of ACS on here. Now, when I talk about the freaky fast part, I'm going to go to a larger directory here, qsys.lib. Now, qsys.lib, clicked on the wrong thing. qsys.lib is going to have a fair few number of objects in it, I believe over 4,000 to be exact. And in a matter of about 4 or 5 seconds, I've now displayed the 4,000 objects. So incredibly fast ways to move out and make this the tool for doing stuff within the integrated file system. Additionally, finding things, right? We have filter, we have include. Well, what are the differences first off, and how do I use them? So filter allows me to sort and filter what's here on this, been pulled back from the IBM that's part of this interface. So I've got 4,265 objects that I've pulled back. And if I type in Tim, it does an instantaneous filtering on a contextual perspective. So anywhere in the name of the object that the letters TIM occur, right, you see what got returned. Super quick, super easy. If I typed in admin, again, you can easily find different things. I can, there's some stuff, I can type in Bob. So again, super quick, easy ways to do filtering. Now, the include allows you to sort not on the PC, which is what filter does, but include allows you to do the filtering on the IBM I. So while this interface now is actually really fast, it allows you to view directories that are fairly large. Some people have directories that are ridiculously large. And if I have a directory that has hundreds of thousands of objects in it, it still may take, you know, a minute or two to display something that large. So it might be better to do an include, where I'm going to sort on the piece on the IBM I and return only the values that fit that particular parameter. So, you know, I did Bob a minute ago. So if I typed in Bob and hit enter, it's only going to return the values that begin with Bob. Additionally, if I wanted to do, you know, Tim, same thing, it returns just those ones there. So great ways to change and limit what kind of values are provided on these directories that are super, super large. All right, I have a question in the chat. We have modified our ACS config files to limit, restrict certain functions in ACS. Is it possible to have more than one ACS config property file in the IFS directory where ACS can be downloaded and installed? So depending on how you have ACS set up, this is one of those questions that is for the ACS administration presentation that we give. Depending on how you have that set up will determine where your ACS config.properties comes from. So you can actually have ACS config properties and loaded and embedded within the ACS config runtime itself. Obviously, the PTF version doesn't provide that. That's something you would have to change and add yourself. So you can't have two separate things. They do tend to be combined together. So you can actually build separate packages that have different ACS config.property modifications for different users. If you want more information on this particular one, we have a lot of information in a presentation that I did at TechU, for example, that talks about the admin support and how to configure ACS. Hopefully that answered your question, Alan. Okay, back to our ACS stuff for a few minutes. Some of the new features that we've added in 1186. I think you'll find some of these things pretty interesting. I know I certainly do. Let me go back to my home directory. If I come to my home directory and I filter on zip, so we now, if you click on it, right click, we now provide the, a link to an unzip capability. So you can now do an unzip of a jar file. The other things that we've provided here, if I look at SQL, right? I have an SQL file. If I right click on it, I can open it and run it in SQL scripts. So tying these things together to make it easier to work with different features of the IFS file system. Now, another feature that people had asked for, I mean, for some of these things, let me click on this, right? If I look at a spreadsheet, we have view. So if I clicked on that, well, I'm actually going to download it and I'm going to open that spreadsheet in Excel, right, as one would expect it to be done, which is all well and fine and kind of snazzy. But if I happen to have a, let's look at a source QCL source file member, whether this is a QCL or an RPG file, I have a member here. If I were to go view this particular member, by default, we don't view it in a particularly nice way. As you can see, it's being shown as gibbly-guck here, right? So that was a problem, and to solve that, we now provide this view option where you can convert that file to UTF-8. So if I convert this to UTF-8, that's going to make that file viewable on my PC. So now I have the ability to view these ILE source members, which are an EBCDIC file, basically. I can now view them from my Mac in my case, or from your Windows PC, by leveraging this UTF-8 conversion feature. So that's something that's new that was added in 1186. Now, the really big one, and this is the one that I think is fantastic, is uploads. So if I want to do an upload, if I right click, I can go click on the upload feature. In the past, you're only able to upload a single file at a time. Well, now, if I go and I select 3 files, I'm going to select 5 files because I can, skip around, and I click open, I'm going to upload these 5 files, and boom, they're up, they're done, and away we go. And within a couple of quick, short seconds, assuming my internet connection stays active and continues to work, joys of working from home, I've now got multiple files uploaded super quick, super easy. The other thing that's rather fascinating is I could actually upload a directory as well. So if I went and clicked on upload, I could say click on ACS samples. I'm not going to do this because I think this file is a little bit large, but if I click on open, right, that entire directory and all of its contents are also going to be uploaded. So some really nice, easy ways to help you move files up and down and up from your PC up to your IBMI. And thank you all for the chat updates. I really appreciate those. I actually have the little chat window up and I'm watching it. So thank you for chiming in on those. It's fun to see and good to hear. So really we've been, and honestly, a lot of this has been because of you all. We have a great community that lets us know when they're trying to do some stuff and use these tools that we provide and let us know that, well, I'm trying to do this, but it's not working as well as it could be for me. And, well, you let us know, we can then make changes and continue to improve these tools. And so we're really excited about the IFS support that's available. And again, good stuff. So, okay, so question, hi Tim, although the features of upload and download looks quick and simple, from a security perspective, is there any restrictions to upload certain files which might be malicious? There's no restrictions that are provided in here for certain. No, absolutely not. I mean, it's kind of one of those, if you have access to the files, you'd be able to upload them through FTP or other mechanisms, right? We're not restricting anything from that perspective. So yeah, obviously that is something you want to be careful of. If you've got a file that's malicious, you certainly don't want to put it on your IBMI, although depending on the maliciousness of it, it may or may not run anyway. So that's always a nice thing about I. So our tool is really intended to help you do what you've always been able to do, whether it's through a file share or other mechanisms, but be able to do this in a much easier way. And it's based on the permissions, yes. So it's based on the permissions the user has access, so that is unequivocal. So from an IBMI perspective, I can only access things that is available to me as a user profile that I've signed on as. So those are certainly taken into account. So you definitely want to be careful with things like all objects and things of that nature, and limit what your users have access to, and that makes a big difference. Now there was one question here. Is this happening through FTP? No, absolutely not. So the FTP server could be completely shut off. On this, we are actually using QFileServe 400 is what we are using to do this downloads, and certainly it also allows us to, if I take and select a bunch of systems, I can go click on send. I can then send these to a number of other IBMI systems that I have defined. So if I had, 3 systems that I wanted to send it to, we would then take these files that I have specified up here, right? We would go create a save file with these, which would then save all of the security components of those files, and we would send those using QFileServe 400 to the systems that I have specified over here. So it doesn't use FTP or SFTP. You can set up QFileServe 400 to use SSL as well. So that's a feature that's now available in 7.4. Okay. Yes, TLS 1.3 is available in 7.4. All right, any other of these questions I should answer right now? I think I answered most of these. All right. Where to next? Let's go back to the presentation to see if there's anything that I put in here that I wanted to cover. I covered multi-file upload. I covered a directory, unzip, convert to UTF-8, all good stuff. The SQL. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about using SQL to manage the IBMI. This is a topic that we could spend, actually days looking at, and there's a ton of information that's available that we could talk about. We've known SQL, it's the language of the database, but I consider that fairly a restricting view of things. I really consider SQL the language for data. And we've been on a path to create what we call these IBMI SQL services, where you can go and access and manage information on the IBMI using SQL. Now, I forgot to add one slide in here, but it's okay, we can get around that. I'm going to actually open up, let me go to a new window. If I go to my
while
friend
you're doing
Google,
that, Tim, sorry, while you're doing that, just a quick reminder to people that this session is being recorded, and I will tell you about the replay information later. Hopefully later today you'll receive that via email. Tim, there was also a request for the admin presentation from someone, so let's chat afterwards, and we
sounds
can.
good.
Great, thanks. Over
Okay.
to you again.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just go start here with my friend Google. Scott Forresty and I have been on a mission to provide this information, and we've done this through a couple of different means. If you go to Google and type in F-O-R-S-T, Forresty, and GIST, G-I-S-T, Scott has got a site out here where he has provided 67 working examples of how to use SQL to answer different questions about managing this system. These are some amazing, a lot of these are fairly complex, but examples out here on how to do that. Additionally, Scott and I have also created what we call our IC video series blog. And we've got a video blog out here where we actually go and show you how to use some of these SQL examples using ACS. So we've got, I don't know, 12 or 13 different examples out here now. We're continuing to build out and showing you hands-on how to actually do some of this. Now, to kind of follow on with that, with some of the things that we've done within our Run SQL scripts interface, truly the possibilities are endless. The third way to get SQL options is this little button up here. This is Insert from Examples. Now, some of you may be going, I don't do SQL, and I'd like to say, I agree with you. I don't do SQL either, but that doesn't mean I can't use SQL and learn a lot and be very successful with it. And the reason that I can do that is we've got some great examples out here for how to do that. We've provided examples for every single IBMI service that we've delivered. We have got a working example out here. So great ways to find and learn about stuff. So as an example, 10 largest files under an IFS subdirectory tree. There we go, I can run it, and now under the IFS directory of /user, within a couple quick seconds here, I can now see the 10 largest files, right? Try to do that with WorkLink. You can't do that kind of stuff, right? This is stuff that is really bordering on new ways, new frontiers. Yeah, and you can go and you can find out your IFS growth size. There's ways to looking at the accumulation of, which is the largest directory. You can find out that information. There's some fantastic things that are available from there. And I believe if you look out in the GIST, Scott has an in-depth and a couple of other other things that you can do within IFS that are pretty fascinating. IFS storage for specific user. This one is pretty interesting, right? So I can look at, you know, a particular user that's out there. In this example, I'm going to look at Scott. I think he has less stuff on the system than I do. This one may take a minute or two to run. Again, it depends on how many files they actually do have out there and how large your IFS is. So this is one of those, you know, scary moments in the world of a demo is, how long is this guy going to sit out here and run? Thankfully, this guy didn't run particularly long. And you can see, this is all the files that Scott has. There's a lot out there. Certainly not as much as I have. I have even more stuff out here. One thing that I want to show you that's new, oh, you may have missed it. Look at this. In 1186, we've added some cool stuff. Look at that. If this field was empty in the past, it was just a little dash was what we put there, which, you know, was okay unless the actual contents of the field was a dash, right? Then what? Well, in the new 1186, we allow you to specify if you want to convert null to a value and a color. Now, how do you set that? Well, I'd like to point out in 1186, which is coming in about 2 weeks, under Edit, there's a new pane. It's called Preferences. We have taken all of the preferences that at one time were scattered to the winds throughout the interface, and we've moved them all to here. So we have your run statement on double click, for example, right? That was buried under a JDBC setting before, right? Results, we have our new, there it is, right? Cell color for background, and what do I want to specify for the text if it is null? These are new. So these are really nice. So the thing that's going to be a little bit confusing is if you're looking for this, the property settings for like Visual Explain, those are now here. The property settings for the SQL formatter, right? Yeah, they're now here. So we've moved all of what used to be scattered to other different places to one simple interface and added some new ones. So that's kind of nice. All right.
Tim, there were a
yes,
few
Jessica.
comments and questions since the last time we stopped. Let me see. There's good feedback about some of the features. There was not a question, maybe a suggestion, I think, from Stephen Hatton, IFS growth with the before and after size. I think it's when you were talking about what the possibilities are.
Yes, and you could definitely use the IBM services to understand that kind of information. So you could actually build that into a monitor, and you could monitor your IFS growth on a regular basis and validate and get that information.
And then there was a question about SQL and Node-RED, do we have a link for interested dummies? And there's a couple of links been posted by Matt in the chat window already. So thank you for that. From a production standpoint, should I be concerned with object locks?
Always you want to be concerned about object locks. And one of the new things that we've added in 1186 is if I'm displaying a large quantity of data, in the past, the object lock for this would be held on to for a period of time. Well, we've now changed that so the object locks are let go at the timeout window. So we do a much better job within this interface of releasing the object locks along the way. So that's another one of those new improvements for 1186 that you might want to be aware of.
Great, thank you.
All right. Okay, I think that, oh, Alan, yeah, create a table with one system and use three-part naming. Yeah, you can, there's some, if you really want to go crazy and do some powerful stuff, leveraging three-part naming allows you to do system compares and do some really crazy stuff. So definitely some powerful stuff. But that, I'm going to say that's for the more advanced SQL person. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but I don't know that I'm going to wander into a three-part naming today in my little demos for that matter. Some of the other things that might be interested in my view that I have right now, I have my script here at the top and my results window all in the same window. But you don't need to do that. You can actually have your results window separate, because I think that can make things easier when you're dealing with larger results files. One of the things that we've done in here, if I right-click on that, there's a new details. And under details, we provide you with the metadata for each of the columns that are shown. And the part that I find fascinating is down here, we actually now also provide you with the SQL that was used to generate this data set. So we allow you to tie those things together, even if they're not in the same window like I'm showing you here. So I think a nice feature that's pretty powerful as well. And yes, Matt, thank you for posting those links. And again, thank you for the blog that you wrote. I'm sure Scott also has something out on his GIST site as well about doing three-part naming. So that's awesome. Really appreciate that. It's so much fun to see the community dive into these and really take these to the next level. It's been quite fun. So any other questions? I mean, I could spend the next hour going through examples with running SQL, but I think for that purposes, I think I'm going to move on to some other things, unless there's some other specific questions that you have about ACS and Run SQL scripts.
No further questions at the moment, so carry on.
Okay. Oh, one last thing. I'm going to carry on in a minute. We talked about combining and using CL commands. You may be aware, if I type in CL : that tells Run SQL scripts that this is going to be a CL command, and I can go do a submit job. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know what any of the parameters for submit job are. So if I hit PF4, that's prompting. So I have prompted my submit job. Click it advanced, have access to all the params. Now, I'm going to do a work active job command, and I can hit PF4 again to prompt, and now I'm going to prompt within the prompt. And there we go. I'm going to do a work active job, sending it to an output queue file, and there we go. I've got a CL command. You can take and combine CL commands and SQL together, and you can do all this with prompting, for example. Now, the one thing that I really like is if I'm in here working on stuff, right? Let me do some more prompting. Now, I have an empty spot, so I'm going to create some new SQL. If I hit Control and the space bar, you're going to get prompted with some SQL examples. So what, from an SQL perspective, makes sense in this context? And when I say in this context, that's super important, because this whole prompting capability is really contextual centric. So I'm going to just click on the select. Now we highlight what needs to be replaced by you in this example. So I'm going to go put my cursor here by that TBL perspective. I'm going to actually just highlight it. If I have my cursor there, I can hit Control space which would then bring up the prompt window, or you have another option. I can hit PF4. Both work. Now the PF4, in this example, I actually, I didn't want, I have the TBL actually highlighted there. So I'm gonna get rid of that and just hit my prompt. Oh, I know what I'm doing. It's telling me what's available from that spot. I wanted to actually go look at a IBMI service. So if I typed in QSys2 dot, give it a context, and now hit my PF4, it's going to go retrieve all the IBMI services that are in the QSys2 library. Now, there's a lot here. If I wanted to look at NetStat, I can go and there we go. I typed in an N and I got to NetStat, super quick, super easy. Again, what are the columns? PF4 again, and I have all the columns that are available within this particular service. For the sake of ugliness, I'm going to select all columns. Now, you can see I've just created one big ugly piece of SQL here. Now, this is where this first button that we have sitting up here becomes really useful. That's the formatter. So if I select that statement, select formatter, there we go. I have now formatted it and moved it into a much prettier, nicer size. Now, this is really useful if you're trying to take some SQL and fit it into an 80-column wide file. Let the formatter do it for you. At this point, I could run this, or maybe I want to add some more SQL. So I move my cursor to the end, and I hit prompt again. And now it's going to give me some, what are my next options, right? Do I want to do an order by or a group by? Well, I could do a order by. What do I want to order by? PF4. Well, there we go. I can specify I want to do the order by a specific value that's returned within my run SQL scripts example here, which in this case it's NetStat. I'll pick something, local address. And then I want to sort in descending order. And so when I go to run that, I will then get my things returned as I've specified. So quick, easy ways to continue to build, and we've continued to enhance the prompting support to include more aspects of the SQL language so that you can build even more complex more complex SQL as you leverage these IBMI services. Okay. On to some other things. I've covered that, covered this, covered that. Within schemas, you can actually do compares. Yeah, I can compare the contents of a file from one system to another. That is also available using leverages some of the three-part naming support that we've been talking about. But I'm not going to go ahead and demo that since I want to get to a few other things from a timing perspective. So the last thing I'm going to spend a second or two talking about on ACS is the open source management tooling. So any other questions about this whole world of SQL and the run SQL scripts that I can answer before we move on? If you have something, throw it in.
I think mostly it's comments that they love the hidden gem to do with prompting CL. Yeah,
yes,
and a couple of other comments. I don't think there's anything.
So when we talk about hidden things. Under tools, there's the open source package management. So if you're doing anything with open source on IBMi, or you want to, this would be a key place to go. Specify, I have to sign in with the user that I want to use for this. I could specify a container that I'm looking at as well. I have now gone and I'm looking at all of the packages that are currently installed on this particular IBMi. We do have a lot of packages available today. Open source management has gone from PTF support, which was in the past, to now everything that's done is leveraging RPMs and leveraging the Yum installer for putting RPMs onto the IBMi. If I look at my updates available, this allows me to see if there's newer levels of packages out on the IBM repository that are not on this machine. And so this is now all available within this tooling that's part of ACS. One of the things to point out with this new open source package management tooling, in the past, if your IBMi did not have access to the internet, you needed to go and download all the RPM files from the IBM repository to, say, like your PC, for example, before you could then actually do the download. Well, we've now provided a new feature called SSH tunneling, which allows you to use your PC as an SSH tunnel to the IBMi. So you can configure this such that you can run the open source tools on IBMi, and it'll leverage your PC to actually connect up to the IBMi to then pull those files from the IBMi RPM repository down through your PC and load them onto your IBMi, really simplifying that flow. We're using SSH to do that. And there are some documents that, if you want to make certain you get that set up, and some of the security concerns, right? We have some of that stuff is out available on the open source site. But I just wanted to make you aware of this, so that if you're doing open source, this is available for you today, and works pretty slick. Okay. Any other ACS questions? Otherwise, I'm going to switch gears for just a minute. Spend a couple minutes talking about Navigator, because I want to make certain I get to some of the other items, as we have a long way to go yet. The Web Navigator.
I don't think so. I don't think there are any other questions. There's a few comments and collaboration going on in the chat, which is great. And then there was just a question about whether the slides will be available, which I've answered. Yes, they will be, along with the replay.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Jyoti. So Navigator, it's been around for a long time. And you may think whatever you want about this interface. I have my own opinions. I don't like it either. I get it. But there's one feature in here that is absolutely fantastic, and we've actually recently made a huge upgrade to, and that is the Performance Data Investigator support. Being able to look at all of that collection services data that's sitting on your machine and being able to view it in these new graphical interfaces. And I do, Dawn, thanks for chiming in. I also love PDI. And in my view, PDI is the absolute #1 reason that Navigator is an important feature of the system. So for the sake of, again, demos, wrong one, let me go to here. So if I go to Navigator, under Performance, we have Investigate Data. There's a whole bunch of different collections. There's tons and tons of information out here. If I go look under Collection Services, I can go look at CPU utilizations overview. And assuming this system is still working, or if it decided to go away on me, it decided to go away on me. You know, that's the thing I just love about demos. Demos are so much fun. But
and I can reassure everyone that it definitely was there before. So it's just one of those things.
Well, you know, did somebody take the system down, or did my internet seems to still be working because I'm still talking to you. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the system, somebody took the common. Oh, that's just a plain bummer. Yeah, go figure. What, isn't that just the way things work?
Mm.
I think 3. Let's see if I can get to it from a different system. Yeah. Ah, there we go. So all hope is not lost.
I knew you would do it.
All right. I see some references to iDoctor in there. iDoctor, yeah, you could purchase iDoctor. You have to purchase that. The one thing that's nice is this is a free solution that's part of your IBM operating system. It allows you to actually dive into an awful lot of data. iDoctor allows you to dive into even more, but you can do almost everything you need with a PDI without having to go purchase something additional. So it's just another option that's available to you. When we talk about charts, I definitely don't want to recommend using Display Classic. I would use the new Display option. And this is going to take this data and display the data in this new graphical tooling that we have. We're leveraging a new graphing package that allows you to display data in a relatively pretty nice manner. So this is really nice in the respect that there's a couple features of these charts that become fascinating. If I click on one of these down below, I can turn them off. So I can look at just a specific entity if I wanted to. So I can get a nice clean view of things. If I also, additionally, some of the other features that we've added here, if I open up context, you can now display data from multiple collections. So you're no longer restricted to a single collection. So if I selected multiple files, I might want to change my interval so that, you know, my chart doesn't look quite so ugly. Maybe if I do this in a 1-hour interval and then I do a refresh, it's going to look at a much broader period of time. And there you go. I can see I've got 2 days worth of data that I'm displaying. I can also zoom in on something by dragging and dropping these things at the bottom to look at a very specific range. Hover over something and see the time. So some nicer ways to look at the data within these tools. I can branch off to other locations, other charts. Again, whether it's CPU or disk, there's lots of different options that are available here. So PDI is a fantastic tool for actually diving in and starting to understand what's going on. All right, so there's a flurry of questions and comments that have come in. Which ones do I have to look at?
There's a question about settings to improve the response time for Navigator for Java settings in a file or something.
Yeah, the biggest thing, you don't want to run it on too small of a system. Usually when it comes to the Navigator. The hardest part is startup. Once the thing is started up and it's up and running, then it usually works actually quite well. There are some details out there. It's probably out on one of the support pages. I'm not certain where those are at the moment. The one question about PDI multi-selection, yes, that is available in 7.3 and 7.4 because it's available as part of the Navigator interface, which is really OS agnostic. We don't really care. So you can use that against any of those machines. How is the performance impact on the system using Investigate data? Are you talking from a Navigator perspective? It's actually going to be relatively minimal. It's going to be the same as if you were to run something like iDoctor or some other kind of tool, because all we're doing is we're pulling data out of the collection services file, and then we're throwing that data up into your browser, and the browser then does the formatting of the data and putting it into the graphical view. So all of this graphical view stuff, this is now part of your browser package. In this case, we're leveraging something called Dojo to graph the data that's being sent up to the browser. Yeah, the SQL, one of the things that we've also provided, if you wanted to see the SQL that we're using to build the data in this graph, there's a little button over here to the far right, right? SQL. Yeah, click on that guy, and guess what we're going to show you? Yeah, the SQL. So there's all the SQL that we're using to do stuff. And I know there's been some bantering back and forth between PDI and iDoctor. Many of the charts that you're looking at here in PDI are exactly the same as what you have in iDoctor. What iDoctor then is going to do is allow you to go a little bit deeper. And there's certainly some reasons that you may want to use iDoctor, but certainly not everybody needs it. And there's certainly, the other thing about iDoctor is it needs to be installed onto a Windows PC. So if you don't have a Windows PC like me, right, well, this provides you an alternative that I can use to do virtually anything I need from a performance management perspective. So can you put that SQL into ACS, or is it already there? No, it's not already there, but you can copy and paste it into Run SQL scripts, and you can run it there. And when you run it there, that's going to give you basically this raw data, which is what I have showing you, which I clicked on the raw data view, and that's what's going to show you. So some great different options that are available. Are there some settings to look at before making use of this performance data? I'm sure there are. That's a question for somebody like Dawn to answer on a performance management session. Is there ways to improve the SQL performance by having indexes? I'm sure there are, but that's gonna be outside of the realm of this particular conversation as well. Okay. Just as a FYI, for those that are using Navigator today, just keep a lookout. We're in the process of updating that interface as well. So we're going to make the whole experience hopefully better in the future. Okay. I'm going to move on because I want to cover a couple other things beyond just the PDI support. I mean, the reality is PDI and Navigator is it could be a future session itself. Yeah. All right. Any other questions about Navigator? Because I want to switch to a couple of other topics. One of the other interfaces that we delivered is now available in 7.3 and 7.4. If you need to manage your digital certificates, you may have been aware that we had a fairly rudimentary interface that was a bit clunky and hard to use, and that's been around since, no, yeah, the net.data one, Anton, that's exactly what I'm referring to. No, you don't need to use net.data interface anymore. We have a brand new digital certificate management interface. It's available on 7.3 and 7.4. Additionally, the one thing that we've delivered as well is we now have APIs that are available so that you can do a lot of this stuff programmatically if you wanted to. And those are things that were never available in the past as well. So to show you that guy, if I click over, well, hopefully it's still up and running, we shall find out. If you, the URL to get to it, I'll just go ahead and start at the, shoot, common one. Let's see if this guy is still running. If I go out to the n/DCM, we're going to catch that URL. We're going to route you over to the admin server that the DCM interface is running under, which is port 2006 by default. I can then sign in, and I'm at the new digital certificate management interface. Now, a couple things about this that I think are quite fun. You can install new certificates. I can open a certificate store. I'm going to go ahead and open the system certificate. The password, much like you would experience in the past. No thanks. And here we're going to show you a bubble view of all the certificates that are on this particular certificate store, with a little bit of information about each one, right? What type is it? Where is it stored? What type of certificate? I can click on view and I can dive in and see all of the detailed information about a particular certificate. This search capability, incredibly powerful, right? If I want to search by expiration days, I can then go and search by and sort it in descending order, and I can see all the certificates, because, right, they're red, that are expired. And if I keep scrolling down, I'm going to get rid of this filter and look at look at all the certificates. There we go. I have one that's yellow because it's going to expire in a certain number of days. So easy ways to look at your certificates, work with them, and hopefully in a manner that makes a whole lot more sense than what was the previous support. Now, if for some reason you have some longing to continue to use the old one, you still can. It's still there. It still works on 7.3 and on 7.4, but future versions of the operating system, we probably won't ship that old version. It'll be time to start leveraging and using this one. So we're really excited about what this new interface holds. If you've, for those of you that have to manage certificates, right, you start using this. If you got some suggestions for us, love to hear from you. Yeah, Scott, Scott, Matt, great point. We also have an SQL service now that can be used to do the certificates. It is a little bit weird because you have to provide that password. So just for, oh, I don't want to go there, just for the sake of it, if I go over to Run SQL Scripts and I pump in here certificates, which certificates are no longer valid, there it is. It's actually delivered as one of our insert from examples. And the thing that's interesting is I need to go set the password. So I need to go set the password, and then once it's set, I can then use the SQL service to retrieve the certificate information and look at that stuff all from SQL. So thank you, Matt, for saying that. Great segue. All right. Any other questions on the certificates interface?
No, I think you covered them.
Super.
Just everyone's liking what you've done there.
Great work. What's a walk? Thanks, Matt. Quick couple minutes on ARE, our Administration Runtime Expert Support. I don't know if you're familiar with this. ARE is a tool that we've created. We created it a number of years ago. We created it for us in the lab to look at all of our customer machines, because customers would go and make changes on their systems that would cause some of the interfaces like Navigator or PDI or the Query 400 support to stop working. And then we'd have to go spend hours trying to crawl through the system to figure out what changed. So we built a tool that allows us to do that automatically, and we've extended that tool to now allow you to look at this, but look at it from a PTF perspective, and then to leverage and use PTFs and distribute them to multiple endpoints. So you can take and create an image catalog, or you can create a pool of save files on a central system. I can then use ARE to move these files, these PTFs around to these different endpoints from the central system. I can compare, I can see what's different, and send them along. So some really nice ways to look at and powerful ways to do this today. Our website is available. ARE is a tool that is actually free. It's an LPO. It's part of the bonus pack that comes with the IBM. So it's all there. It's all available. We also have a article that we have registered out here on our ARE website that points to an article that was written by one of my friends over here in the world of Europe there, Rudy Valhilroyd, who put together an article for me that shows you how to use ARE to get it set up and how to move these PTFs from system to system. Really great article on how to do that. Just as a quick example on how to do some things here. Hear me? One of my headsets just went down.
I can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry about that. One of my my AirPods the battery just died. I think I need to get new AirPods. I've overused these. They're getting tired. If I go to my ARE interface, I've got a template here that we've created that allows me to validate my PTFs compared to what's out on the service planning website. So I go take a look at this. We're going to look at PTFs. We've created a template. And I'm going to go look at all PTFs on the target system compared to what's available out on the IBM PSP website. So I need to have an internet connection from here to that end system, but I can go look at all of these PTF groups and see if there's anything different. It's really easy to do. I've got this template created. If I go and run it, which is down here on the console perspective, I'm going to run localhost against PSP check. And if I go to click verify, I'm going to go do exactly that. I'm going to connect to the local host. I'm going to run the PTF verifier plugin, and I can go take a look and see that, yep, we've got a bunch of differences. So this particular IBM, which is common one, is down level compared to what we've delivered out on the IBM website for the most recent versions of the PTF groups. Now, if I was comparing this to a central system, versus the PSP website, and I had downloaded those, I had gone to and downloaded those PTFs to that central system, I would now at this point be able to push those PTFs to the endpoint system that I just verified. So easy ways to kind of pull and combine these things together. All right. Any other questions about ARE? We could do an entire session. There's so many powerful things that you can do with ARE. Can I do a full session on VLUG dedicated to ARE, please? Actually, I could. That would be great. And maybe we get Dawn May to help with that, or maybe do it, because she's been doing an awful lot of fun things. Look at that. Dawn May would love to do that. So Jyoti, there you go. You got a new session and a speaker. I love this when this stuff comes together. And,
yes, I do as well. And I think that we did do an ARE session quite some time ago, so it'd be good to have an update on it.
Yes, yeah, it definitely would be, because we've made a lot of improvements. And the thing that's really fantastic about ARE is one of the things that you can do with it now is if you go into the template editor, sorry, Dawn, I'm going to steal some of your thunder on this one. If I go to click on Dawn's demo, this is so powerful. Run SQL verifier. I can go use these SQL services, and I can run them in ARE and compare stuff. It's just the coolest thing ever. And I can do it in an automated manner. So really fun stuff. So, but I won't show you how Dawn does this. That'll be for her session later on. Thank you, Dawn, for volunteering. All right, I want to go, I got 15 minutes left. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the Nagios support that we have. If that's okay. This is our last topic. When we talk about the world of monitoring versus managing, different world, right? I want to keep track of what's going on so that when something bad happens, I can get notified so that I can take some form of an action. And that could be across my data center, whether that's different switches, different servers, firewalls, or your IBMI. We've had solutions in the past. One of the more famous solutions that we had for quite some time was something called IBM Systems Director. And that's where the Systems Director Navigator played into that at one point in time as well. Thankfully, that product, Systems Director, has been discontinued. There are a number of other options available in the industry. Most of those do come at an additional cost. But our IBM community still required some kind of solution that was available to them and could be enhanced, and it could leverage and do some pretty complex things. And Nagios became a very fascinating solution for us for a couple of reasons. The Nagios core is truly a fully open source solution, and the ability to connect endpoints to Nagios is also supported by the open source community. So when I show a slide here and I show connecting to Linux servers or switches or Windows servers or IBMI, the thing that I find fascinating about Nagios is these plugins are created by the open source community based on their experiences of what they want to monitor. So it really fits quite well. So Steve, you have an excellent question. Does Ansible complement or replace Nagios? Ansible is not a monitoring tool. Ansible is a management automation tool. So it doesn't replace, but if you combine the ability to monitor and manage, it becomes very complementary, where you can do things in Nagios to monitor and be able to then take an action in an automated manner, which is the management capabilities that Ansible brings to the table. Okay, now what the heck is Nagios? Let's dive into that just a little bit. Nagios, it's a tool to do system monitoring. It allows you to also do alerting. I can then do responses, or I can do maintenance, reporting. The reporting stuff is pretty fascinating because with Nagios, you're actually going and you're collecting a bunch of data on your IBMI and putting it into the Nagios database and the Nagios server. And if you're doing this for some period of time, you can now use Nagios as basically a historical reporting or a trending tool, so you can understand what's going on from a trending perspective. Nagios works such that you have a Nagios server. That Nagios server runs, unfortunately, not on IBMI. It runs on a Linux partition. Most people will run it on a Intel-based Linux. I believe they're working on also providing it to run on a Power Linux as well. But the cool thing about this is there's nothing you need to add to the IBMI to make Nagios work. One question, does Nagios interface with work with ticketing software like Remedy? I'm not certain. That would be a question that you could definitely direct to the Nagios community, and they could get answers to you from there. Now, with the way this works, there's nothing on the IBMI that we need to have loaded before Nagios will work. Because what we've done is the IBMI development team has gone and we have created a couple of plugins. And these plugins plug into the Nagios server themselves. And we've created two primary plugins. One is leveraging JT Open, and it is going to go collect what we considered a group of about 15 or 20 key metrics. So the only thing you need to be able to do is you need to have the host servers running on the IBMI, and you'll need to specify a user ID and password for that connection. And at that point, once you've done that, you could also use SNMP, but we don't recommend that from an IBMI perspective. And you can get access to this core list of metrics. There's some good stuff here for certain. So Stephen, you have a question. And as a FYI, if you're monitoring your system I, you probably want another system I, not running local. So first off, you can't run Nagios on IBMI, so it's going to be running on a Linux partition that you can then use to monitor all of your IBMIs in your data center. The other plugin that we've created, and this is the one that really opens up the world of options and opportunity, is we created a plugin that allows you to use SQL and IBMI services. So you can virtually manage anything. This is phenomenally powerful, and we've updated this plugin to do something rather interesting. Oh, so Rudy, why is SNMP not recommended for IBMI? Because it requires a bunch of additional setup. So that's the only reason. It's a whole lot easier just to use the other plugins that we've created for you. With this new SQL plugin that we've created and is out in the open source repository for Nagios, we allow you to do a request, and a post, which allows us to combine CL and SQL together, which means that there's very few things that you can't go get from your system. So quick example. In a pre-example, I want to go look at the problem display problem log. Well, there's no SQL interface for that today, but I can do a display problem and I can output that to an output queue file. I can then go leverage a little bit of SQL to go query that problem file and pull out the specific pieces of information I want. And then, of course, just like Mom always said, go clean up after yourself when you're done. We can go clean up that output queue file and make things clean up and go away. So really, this new plugin support allows you the limits of what you can monitor on IBMI are really only limited by your creativity to get at specific information. So there's just a lot that we can do in this. I've got one of our customers, they've got almost 400 IBMIs as part of their ecosystem, and they are using Nagios today to go look at, I believe they're looking at about 250 different metrics. And they're doing that on a monitored basis where they, every so often, they go out and grab that information and they can use that to build charts and that are built into both Nagios, and then they can also go pull that data out of the Nagios database to use it for other strategic planning purposes as well. So some pretty powerful things that you can do within the world of Nagios and IBMI. If you have any questions on this, obviously we'd love to hear from you. Again, this is an option that we're pretty excited about. Can it be used to monitor message queue? Of course it can be used to monitor message queues like QSysOper. Absolutely. There's some stuff that I can look at a specific message in the base support, but I can also do, there's SQL services that are available to allow you to look at QSysOper, for example, as well, so you can do that. Is there an example or a walkthrough on how to get started using this and setting it up? Yes, there is. It's out on our IBMI open source page to the Nagios support. If I go to my friend here, I type in IBMI Nagios and do a Google search. There's stuff out on the Nagios page itself, and there's also some stuff setting up the Nagios plugins for IBMI. So there's a couple of different options that are available out if you just do a quick, easy Google search on stuff. So how is this different from WWTS? I'm not certain what WWTS is off the top of my head. That's maybe because I haven't had enough coffee. Is it possible to monitor ASP latency? Again, if you can access information via an SQL service or a CL command, the answer is yes. Even define a group of message IDs? Yes. So any of that stuff is available. It's just a matter of getting that built into the plugin. This would be another one of those sessions. We could do a session on Nagios where we could dive in and show you how to set it up and how to use it. So Jyote, that would be another option in the future if that would be something that your community would be interested in.
Already noted, you read my mind. So yes, yeah. We'll organize something.
Yeah, definitely, and that would be something we could actually even have the team from Nagios is always willing to help out with this stuff as well, because they can answer the Nagios-centric questions. Just for awareness, right, there's two versions of Nagios. There's Nagios Core, which is completely free, and there's Nagios XI, which is their pay-for version. It's actually a very inexpensive product when it comes to the world of products. The way we like to describe it is Nagios Core is free, Nagios XI is worth the cost. And really the only difference is the configuration in XI is much simpler because there's wizards to help you with that. And then the graphing, the graphs themselves that they create are prettier in XI because they use a nicer graphing package. That's the differences. So anyways, that's something we can take on for a future session, dive into this a whole lot more. Okay. With that, obviously you can always contact us at either Rochester or Montpellier to have deeper dives in any of these things. IBM authenticates the IBMI with an IBMI user profile and password. Is this pre and post functionality only for Nagios, or is this how? No, this is a specific plugin that we put together for Nagios to allow you to do the pre-post support. So that's a Nagios-centric plugin that my team here in Rochester put together specifically for this Nagios support. So as always, we'd love to hear from you, Timur at us.ibm.com. Hopefully you learned something useful today, and thank you for your time. If you have any other questions, continue to throw them in the chat or shoot me an email sometime.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's been fantastic, and there's been a lot of interaction in the chat today. So very happy that all our participants are participating in a very interactive manner. So thank you. It will stay on maybe a minute or two after I stop recording, but for now, just to let everyone know, I am planning some future sessions, not just the ones that have been referenced today, but some others. So I will post information about them. They're not finalized yet, so I don't have any dates to give you just yet, but watch out in the usual manner via email from me and via social media. So thank you all very much for joining. I'm just going to stop the recording now.